Hello and welcome to Anderson Community Television. I'm Carol Donahue, the host of At Your Service, and I'm so pleased today to welcome an old friend of our programs who we always enjoy talking to him, and he has so many good tips for us, and that is the Assistant Fire Chief, Tom Reamer. So welcome, Tom, to the program.
Well, thank you.
So let's talk about, since it's still a little cold out and we're stuck in our homes a lot, let's talk about some home safety issues and maybe start with like the portable heaters.
Yeah, that's a good place to start, especially now with the economy being tight and folks trying to save money. There's the concept of using portable heaters to maybe heat the room you're in and keep the furnace down a little bit to save on costs, and that's an alternative. And the key there is just making sure that we do it safe. And the first thing with portable heaters is there's a lot of different kinds. So you've got infrareds, you've got propane, you've got kerosene, and most common we're going to see is electric. And really the most safe to be inside in your house is probably electric. When you're dealing with like a kerosene heater or a propane heater, anything that burns fuels is going to have some kind of off gas that it's going to put out. And if your home is very, very tight, you could be dealing with some potential fumes that could irritate you or potentially make you sick. So the rule of thumb in a residential house is that you shouldn't be using unvented heaters. So if you're using something that burns fuel, it should be vented. But going back to electric heaters, a lot of information out there that doesn't get out is some of the rules of safety for portable heaters. And the first one, which is really simple, is the heater really needs to be plugged directly into an outlet. They do draw a fair amount of energy, no matter how energy efficient your heater is. Draws a lot of electric.
So in other words, don't plug it into an extension cord.
Correct. You want to plug it directly into the wall outlet. That reduces the amount of time or the amount of travel the electric has to go to get to the heater. And it's a big fear with using the wrong size extension cord, potentially an extension cord that can't handle the load. But all that distance through the extension cord is just creating heat and not letting the heater work properly. The other thing is making sure that it's a proper clearance. That at a minimum, it has to have 36 inches of clearance to anything that's going to burn. Paper, cloth, material, any kind of combustible material that could get up against it, that it could get hot and either melt or cause to start a fire.
How about carpeting?
It'll be able to count the carpeting. They are designed, they've got a little feet on them that'll give them a little bit of a raise on a carpet. But the best thing, depending on what kind of heater you got, after it's been running for a few minutes, go and put your hand on the carpet. If the carpet is getting warm, then it probably needs to be elevated. Get it up off the carpet. If you've got real deep carpet, it could be a problem. But yeah, just check that. And along with that is make sure it has a tip-over switch. So
don't the newer ones all have them?
Well, they're supposed to have. All the new ones are supposed to have. But I know that we've seen some that have been sold in the stores very, very recently that don't have. And so if you pick the heater up and you rotate it so it's face down while it's running, it should turn off. If it doesn't, it either doesn't have a tip-over switch or the switch might not be working properly.
Well, I know we heard in the news about a month ago, maybe over the holidays, there was that fire in Clifton. And the newspaper said it was the fact that the the heater was too close to the bed and the linens caught on fire.
Yeah, I saw that on the news, and that's tragic, especially when something like that potentially could be prevented. I don't know the details of that specific story other than what I saw in the news. But again, making sure you've got that distance, that you don't have clothes piled up on the floor where the heater's actually heating them, or bed linens that's too close to it that it's going to cause the heat, or something that potentially could get flipped onto it. So something where maybe it's a bed sheet that you flip off in the middle of the night and then it lands on the heater where maybe it wasn't on it in the first place. Right. So really looking ahead, what could happen with this heater during the time that I'm actually using it.
And going back to the heaters that burn fuel, I know I have a ventless fireplace in my home, so you would suggest maybe that we crack the window open just a little bit when we use it?
Well, the vent-free fireplaces are supposed to be 100% safe, and they do recommend that in very, very new homes that you have to be very cautious because of the fact that they do need a little bit of, I'm going to use the word draft. So if you've got a house that's fairly new, you might want to have maybe a professional look at that and determine, and maybe the fireplace manufacturer, have somebody take a look at that and see if it's producing enough vapors that it might be a problem. Your older homes are not a problem. Because there's enough air exchange. It's amazing, they talk about buying new windows and cutting down on your draft. All homes have some type of draft. They're not perfectly airtight, and that's what makes up for that. And of course, the safest is if it actually is vented. So
I think those airtight homes too. I know I was reading something about radon, and the newer homes, and it traps it in, and where there's not a lot of ventilation.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about that in my house.
Well, and radon testing is something good to do.
Yes.
You can. There's actually you caught me off guard. I don't know the website offhand, but it's actually a state-funded agency that you can get radon kits for like $7. And you can Google it and find it. But $7, and you can get the kit, and you can put it in your house. All the directions are there, and you can send it off to the lab, and it'll tell you whether you've got radon or not. You can buy kits at a lot of your like hardware stores and your home improvement centers, and you can do that. They're a little bit more expensive, but just make sure the testing is included. The testing is an expensive part of the radon. So,
I think it has to be under 4 percoliters or whatever,
I don't know the
something
numbers,
like that.
but all that's listed in your kit.
Okay. Well, going back to the heaters, now you touched on propane heaters, and what are the other type?
Well, kerosene was real popular for a while, and when you get into your kerosene and propane heaters, those are really heaters that are designed to be used like in a garage. You're out in the garage, or you're doing some kind of work in the garage, not with open flame or with open fuels. So if you're working on the lawnmower, or you're changing a fuel filter on the car, that's an accident waiting to happen. So you need to make sure, if you are, say, working on the car and you're using those type of heaters, that there's no fuel vapors that could catch. But they're really designed for those high draft areas where there's a lot of air moving.
Wow. So one thing the most important thing I've learned is plug it directly into the wall. Do not put it in any kind of a strip or any kind of an extension cord.
Correct. And a little bit about extension cords. I brought a couple samples here. We really don't like extension cords. And actually in commercial buildings, you're not allowed to use an extension cord. And what we recommend, especially for our commercial buildings, is a power strip. And the reason that the power strip is safer is these actually have circuit protection. So in comparison to an extension cord that's just going to heat up and potentially cause some type of fault either with the appliance or the cord itself break down, this device here actually has a circuit breaker on the end. And make sure if you're looking for a power strip that you actually get one with the circuit breaker. And this one's actually marked 15 amps. So even if I've got 6 things plugged into this and I put things in here that are way too much for the circuit, it'll actually turn itself right off at the power strip, and you're not loading the outlet or the wall. And the other thing that we really don't like is we call them the multiple gang outlet. So this is a device, and you can get these at your hardware stores. And the idea is that I can plug this directly into the wall, and then I can plug 3 items into it.
I have one of those.
Yeah, well, you have to be careful with these.
I'm sorry. I'll get that out tonight.
Well, and there's a place for this. If I'm working and I'm using 2 or 3 tools that are all electric, and I'm only using 1 tool at a time, it's very convenient that I can plug 2 tools into it. I'm using one, and I switch over to the other one. That's kind of its purpose in life. The problem is they make these ways into homes, and now I plug a heater in here, and maybe I plug a lamp into here, and then I plug a third item over here, and there's no circuit protection.
I see.
So this is just going to send all that electric back into your wall, and it's going to find the weakest place in the whole house where that electric circuit is before it gets back to the breaker box and potentially cause a fire.
Okay,
So,
I got my job to do when I get home tonight.
and get rid of your multiple gang plug.
It reminds me of that movie, A Christmas Story, where Ralphie and the BB gun, and they've got the Christmas tree, and then they've got all those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the ones that really we see a lot of problems is with the really small gauge extension cords, and that's one of the reasons we're against extension cords. I say against them; they have their place. If I'm doing work and I'm using a tool, that's a great use for an extension cord, that temporary usage. Mm-hmm. I'm plugging something in, the item that I'm using is monitored, and then I go back and I unplug it when I'm done. Mm-hmm. The problem is if the extension cord isn't rated for the same load as the appliance you're plugging in, that's where things start to overheat and potentially cause a problem.
I know when I use mine is maybe twice a year when I iron. I plug it in and then I take it right back out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. Well, let's move on to to chimneys and fireplaces.
Okay.
What would you recommend to keep us safe about getting them cleaned?
Well, chimneys, right off the bat, they should be cleaned once a year, no matter what. Get them cleaned, preferably before and after each season. If you don't use it, one or the other, before or after the season. And we see a lot of chimney fires, and it's all due to creosote building up in the chimney. And it's really bad for folks that are using like some type of a fireplace insert. The chimney is based on the temperature that's in the chimney. If it's really, really hot in the chimney, they'll stay clean. And your fireplace inserts kind of keep the heat in the insert to heat your home, and so the exhaust that's going out through the chimney is cooler than it needs to be, and that's why the creosote builds up. And then at some point, some heat gets up there or a spark gets up there and lights it, and then you have a chimney fire. And
how about those logs that supposedly if you burn them periodically, you can buy a log and that will clean out the creosote?
I've seen no scientific evidence that works. Okay. The safest way is to have a chimney sweep check it. There's professionals out there. You can find them in the yellow pages. You can Google them and find them in the area. But if you get a professional out, they'll do two things. Number one, not only are they going to clean your chimney so it's clean, they're going to inspect it. So they can check to make sure there's not any cracks in the liner, which again could cause carbon monoxide for the folks in the house. So it's kind of a dual purpose, not only getting it clean, but they're going to inspect it at the same time to make sure that it's safe.
And isn't it advisable that if you don't have one to get like a chimney cap to stop debris from going?
That's good. I don't know that they're also going to keep the rain and snow and other debris out of it. The other thing that's good is one with a screen. Keeps the squirrels and birds. Yeah. We'll see that in the fall when you light your fireplace for the first time and somebody's gone down in there and built a nest because it was a convenient place. So that's good to have the screen on it. And again, those won't restrict the smoke getting out.
And I read one time that some of these inserts now are these big stoves. The fireplaces and the chimneys were not made to hold that intense heat. That the heat is so intense when you use
that could
those
be.
inserts.
If you've got the old masonry fireplace, the bricks and it's a clay liner all the way up, you're going to be fine. If it's some of the newer, lighter material construction, maybe some double or triple wall metal, then you're going to want to have the person installing that insert to take a look at your actual home to see if it can take that kind of application.
I see.
So it goes back to not that you can't install it yourself, but especially with those type of items that have that kind of risk, it's not a bad idea to have the company that's supplying it to install it so that you know it's going to be safe.
Yeah, that's very advisable. Well, now let's go forward. Now we're burning our fire, and now we're going to burn our candles.
Okay. Candles are wonderful. My wife has them all over the house. You just have to use good common sense. First off, we have the wide base candles that don't tip over. So I can't tip it over. I don't have a big long candle sitting on something where it's going to fall over. The other thing is I'm going to put it on a surface that if it gets hot, it's not going to hurt it, and I'm not going to put it near anything that can catch on fire. I'm not putting it up near a curtain or where something can, the draft in the room where you walk by and a curtain comes over and gets in front of the flame. So we've got it on an island in the kitchen, for example, with plenty of space around it so that nothing's going to fall onto it and it's not going to fall off. We see problems with candles in bedrooms. That's one place that they really get to be dangerous. You've got it on a nightstand, and whether it gets knocked off or something gets dropped onto it or gets thrown across it, and next thing there's a fire. So again, there's nothing wrong with candles. Just making sure they're in some type of enclosure. Most of them come in like a glass, like in a glass container, or put it in some kind of enclosure. And again, look at it to say what could happen to it. What if I knock it over? What's it going to do? Is it going to land on something that can burn, and how's that going to affect things?
Well, I spoke to you about 2 years ago, and you spoke about the battery candles, and I thought,
yes.
Oh, that isn't authentic. I bought them this year. I love them. And I think it takes 4 AA batteries per candle, and it looks very, very real.
Absolutely, and some of them flicker.
Yeah, mine flickers, yeah.
See, here you go. And they won't start a fire.
And they're safe, and that's what we need.
Yes.
Okay, now let's talk about, say we do a candle, or we do have a little fire, a little mishap going, and we get out our fire extinguishers. Where is the best place to put those and to keep those?
Well, first let's talk about the fire extinguisher itself.
Okay.
You want to make sure that your fire extinguisher is an ABC. And those are the 3 different types of fire that potentially you could have in the home. And if it's an ABC, we also recommend probably a minimum of 5 pounds. And the 5-pound extinguisher is going to give you enough powder that you actually can make an attempt at a fire. And then where we like to see them is by exit doors. If you look around as you go through the township and you look at some of the businesses where fire extinguishers are required, you're going to find them by exit doors. Because if there is a fire, the first thing we want you to do is work on your way on getting out. So the best thing is to get out, call 911, and be safe. On your way out, if you're on your way out and the fire is very small, you know how to use a fire extinguisher, you've been trained, and you can reach it and make an attempt to get the fire out, that's a great idea. You can make your attempt to put the fire out, and then from there, if it's not going out, if it's not working out for you, you can put the fire extinguisher down and go to the door, so that you never want to have that fire between you and the door. You want to have the door to where you can get out. And that's why we put the fire extinguishers at the exits.
Well, I know we have one, and I've never really, I feel bad, looked at it to see how it really works. So for like the smaller ones, do you just, is there a turn to it? And then
Well, they all have some type of a seal and some type of a pin. The first thing you do is just look at the gauge and make sure the gauge is in the green. If the gauge is down in the red, it's lost its pressure, it's probably not going to work.
How long do they last?
They can last a really long time if they're serviced. And when I say serviced, like in your commercial buildings, they have to be serviced once a year. Professional comes out, looks at them, makes sure that it's in the green. They turn it upside down, make sure the powder's loose, and then they put a fresh tag on it. In the home, I wouldn't let one sit for more than a couple years before I would have it serviced
so
or checked.
10 years might be a little long.
That's probably a little long.
Okay.
That's probably a little long.
All right, get the fire extinguisher.
The powder will cake up on the
see.
bottom just as it would if it's sitting in and what will happen is when you're trying to use it, the powder's all caked up. So it's not loose enough that it can actually get out of the extinguisher.
I see.
And use some common sense, especially in the kitchen. Some of the problems we see in the kitchen is we'll see a grease fire, and if you've got a grease fire in the stove, before you get the fire extinguisher out, a lot of times you can just
throw flour.
Well, no, don't throw flour on it. Put the lid back on.
Put the lid on.
Yeah, don't put flour on it. And flour is actually more of a problem. It can actually.
Okay. That was the old wives' tale.
Yeah, that's a bad idea. Don't use
Okay,
flour.
everybody, forget I said that.
No, put the lid back on. Or if you don't have a lid, you don't have a way to cover it up just to stop it, start by turning the power off. If you turn the heat source off on the stove, a lot of times it'll just go out on its own.
That makes sense.
And then your last resort is the fire extinguisher. Don't pick it up and move it. We see a lot of times, we'll see folks that'll take it off the stove and they'll try to make it to the sink to pour the grease into the sink, and in the process, they'll either set curtains on fire or the grease will spill, they'll get burnt. So many other things happen. So if you've got a grease fire in the stove, leave it there until you can control it. And again, dial 911. Even if you've got the fire out, go ahead and call 911 and let's check to make sure everything's okay.
Good idea. And then the progression, now let's talk about smoke detectors.
Smoke detectors are very important. There's 2 types out there now. There's photoelectronic and ionization type. They both do different things. One detects smoldering fires, one detects more free-burning fires. The best detectors out there have both of those sensors in them. You can, again, get those at your local hardware store. You can get them, your Lowe's, your Home Depots, and even your Targets and places like that. There should be one on every floor. If you close your bedroom doors, there should be one in every room. So that you can not only, if there's a fire in one of the rooms, that it's going to reach that one on the floor, but that you can also hear it. And carbon monoxide detectors, really big on those. Again, it goes back to that fireplace. Maybe you don't. Yeah, maybe you don't have a gas furnace, so you don't have a carbon monoxide detector, but you've put in a fireplace that is a gas-burning fireplace. Now it malfunctions, and you didn't think about the carbon monoxide end of it. So really important.
And important too is to keep those batteries, right?
Keep the batteries in. Change your clock, change your battery. So when we change clocks ahead of an hour or behind an hour, we change the batteries in them.
Well, and a home and a car safety kit. What would you suggest to keep us safe?
Well, a couple things. Think about what do I need if the power to go out. I think we all see what happens. They call for a big snowstorm, and everybody runs to Kroger's and gets their water, their milk,
the bread,
and their bread. And so I know for us, we've always got at least a case of water on hand. We've got non-perishable foods on hand. I've got a battery-operated flashlight and a battery-operated radio, so that if I lose all my electric, I can at least have a flashlight. I can at least get a radio so I can hear what's going on. And again, keep making sure your cell phones are charged. If you have a cordless phone and you lose your electric, you now have no phone. So you may need that cell phone. And with that, one of the problems we've run into, again, is folks using their cell phone to call 911, and you have to realize that you have to know where you are. Even if you're calling from your house, the 911 dispatch center doesn't know that.
Well, the signal might be somewhere else.
Might go somewhere else. So make sure you tell them, I'm in Anderson Township, Hamilton County, Ohio. So they'll know where you're at. Your car safety kit. Again, going back to if I'm really trapped somewhere and my car breaks down, do I have a pair of boots to, sensible shoes? Do I have something to put on my feet to get somewhere? Do I have a blanket to keep warm? Is my cell phone charged? And do I know where I'm at? So if I do call 911 and say my car's broke down, come help me, where am I? And kind of having that situational awareness. Having a flashlight.
I know we lived in Minnesota for a while, and we had a little kit in our car, and we had a bag of kitty litter, and we had a candle and a holder and a cigarette lighter to light it. And because we read that the heat from a fairly large candle can keep you from freezing to death in a car. I don't know if that's true or not, but then
I don't know about that one. That might fit right into with the gang plug here. So
see, I'm just full of all these.
Yeah, let's not start.
Old okay, forget I said that too.
Yeah,
but so you just have to be prepared, and I think that brings us to our last item, which we have the gas grills that we use all summer and into the fall. Do those propane tanks need any special care over the winter?
Absolutely, and we do see some of that too. Typically what will happen is you're not going to use it all winter, and whether you store it in a shed or you're storing it in the garage, if you bring the whole grill in, say to the garage, or if you bring the propane tank in the house, which is awful, don't do that. But we see where folks will take them to the basement. And the problem with propane is that it's heavier than air. So if it develops a leak, the tank develops a leak, those vapors will come out and they'll lay across the floor, and they'll get over to where your furnace or your hot water heater has an ignition source and potentially cause an explosion. So the propane tanks should never, never, never be in the house, and preferably not in your garage. Just leave them outside.
Now, how about if you have the gas line out to a tank from your house out to your deck?
If you're not using it anymore, go ahead and shut it off. And there should be a shut-off in your house. So there should be a shut-off on the gas line inside your house, in the basement, or somewhere where you can actually shut that line off so that it's not getting gas.
Okay, one final question here.
Absolutely.
A few years ago, the fire department offered these little address, little signs that illuminate at night with the light shining on it, so the fire department can find you. Do you still have those?
We still have those. They're the reflective address signs, and it's like a blue. It's almost like a street sign, and it has your numbers put on it. I forget the exact cost. It's either $20 or $25. You can call our office, call the fire department secretary at 688-8400, and she can get your information, and then we can get one for you. So
I think there's some subdivisions that are so dark, and you can't even find the address on the homes. I know I'm in a book club, and
and we've had some groups come in where a whole street will get together and they'll all get their signs so they all look the same. It's a good idea. But the big thing is just make sure your numbers are on your house. There's a lot of homes in the township, especially as we start worrying about aesthetics and what my house looks like. There's that desire for the numbers on your house to blend in so that it looks good. Well, if it blends in for you, it blends in for us. And the best thing I can say is, if we're coming to your house at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's dark and it's pouring down rain, are we going to see your house numbers? Are they on your mailbox with reflective numbers? Are they on your house with some kind of opposing color that we're going to see them? If you can't see them at 3 o'clock in the morning, we probably can't either.
Can't see them either. So now our homework as we leave today is to check on the heaters.
Yep.
Check on the extension cords.
Yes.
Give somebody a call, a chimney sweep to clean out and inspect our chimney.
Yes.
Check into our fire extinguishers and see if we need to update them so they haven't all settled. And what am I missing here?
Make sure your candles are safe,
That's right.
so they're not going to tip over.
That's right.
And make sure your heaters are safe for not tipping over. And again, a lot of it goes back to common sense.
Yeah, I think so.
And again, if somebody has a real unique question, feel free to call the fire department. And if we can't answer your question on the phone, we'll either get you the answer, or worst case, we'll have somebody come out and take a look at your situation and see if there's something we might be able to advise to help you out.
And I believe your email address is going to be on the screen, so if
Okay.
anyone has a question, they can just
Excellent.
zip off a question to you.
Okay.
And we thank you, and we please. Okay, one other question.
Oh,
when
absolutely.
we have a block party, everybody says, "Oh, take all the leftover cakes to the fire department and the cupcakes." Do you really eat those?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
We do.
well,
And,
that really
we
was my big question of the day.
Yeah, we do get some snacks that are dropped off once in a while, and we do appreciate it. The question I thought you had was the block parties, because if you do have a block party and you are blocking your street, you do have to go through the township and get a permit for that, so that we know that you're blocking the street. Sometimes folks have a tendency to close the street, and they got tables and chairs, and they kind of forget that an emergency can still happen.
Oh, you need to get through there.
Yeah, so we can help you out with that. We can still help you get your block party, but making sure you cover the bases so you're
I
safe.
mean, you just cover our lives here. That is great. Well, Tom, thank you so
Oh, my
much for
pleasure.
taking
Thank you for having
time
me.
out of your busy day to come speak with us. And thank all of you for watching Anderson Community Television. This is Carol Donahue saying farewell and keep safe.